Welcome back to the double swing. We have reached the real opening stage of the major. I still find it a bit weird to have extended to this point, but apparently it's been around for so long, I'm just an old man yelling at clouds at this point. We do have another guest joining us. Yumi's, of course, present and standing to attention, but before we get to the actual show, we've got to recap the RMRs. There were 4 of them. We banged them out in the space of about 5 days, so we didn't have time to look back and reflect. So I'm going to quickly bomb through those results, then get into the real show. The Asia RMR was incredibly disappointing in terms of controversies in our results. Everyone got 1 point, with Tea Time thankfully being bailed out by Rare Atom. The EU RMR is where things start to get interesting, as both myself and Yumi do pretty well, picking up 5 points across the 2 RMRs. A decent hit rate. The guests, 1 point in each. 2 total. Not a great showing. We'll have some conversations behind closed doors about that. But in the Americas is where things really got spiced up. I went 3 of 4 with Bestia, the only team letting me down. Yumi, 1 of 4. The guest, why not? Showing he did have some regional knowledge, some understanding. He went 2 of 4 to leave us in an interesting place. I am now tied with the viewers and guests on 59 points. Yumi, you are on 42. I don't want to say it's over, but there's 2 shows left, including this one.
Should we just leave Yumi all the good teams? Should we give him a chance?
And you're 17 points back.
I just need you to int really hard as you can.
Might have to. Yeah, Hawka, thank you for joining us. It's your second time on the show. I thought I'd try to get, some of the all-stars on the show. I love all my guests equally, but some people are more equal than others, I guess. I think that's how it's going to come across.
Actually, I'm not going to make that joke. Let's just move on. So I was going to make an interesting joke. I'm not going to make it.
Yeah, wait until we got past the the advertiser minimum. Wait 7 to 8 minutes, then get spicy as you want. But yeah, how you doing? You looking forward to this major? Waking up at 1 a.m. to watch it? It's going to be fun, isn't it?
Oh god, I haven't even looked. Yeah, this is still. Oh, okay. Yeah, what 3 a.m. start time? Is that better or is that the same as it was? I don't really remember.
It's the same as it was, but it's as good as 1 a.m. for me. I'm going to be asleep.
Yeah, I technically could mess up my sleeping pattern if I cared.
I have been. It's been tough.
Oh,
I had to reset it just for this show.
Yeah, and then what? You're just going to ruin it again?
Yeah.
Maybe I will. We'll see.
It's hurting the Christmas shopping. I need to plan that part of my life out, but Counter-Strike's in the way.
Yeah, not easy. I mean, we'll try. Worst case, you just wake up at what, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 a.m. I mean, that's still pretty bad. It's like the opposite of my normal messed up sleeping pattern, which is a shame.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Yeah, for me, even though I am going to be, spoilers for anyone who's not a member, because I think I already talked about this on my members videos, I am going to be jobless in December. I could do it. I have too many things on at normal times.
Yeah, that's the problem as well. Yeah,
my gym's not 24 hours. These sorts of things are a bit of an issue. So going to be tough to keep up. But Hawka, you have deferred the first pick and the second pick. You've chosen to go third.
Oh, yeah.
I will be leading off the show. So all pressure on me, all eyes on me. Although thankfully I have lived a little longer than Tupac, I think. I am going to take, with the number 1 pick. I thought I had it locked in, but now that the pressure's on, I really don't like it. I'm going to take Liquid.
Okay.
I'm going to take Liquid. Screw it. I was tempted by a team like Mongolz, but I've realized that in the big pressure moments, you've got to rely on the big names, the players you've seen do it before. And Twist is exactly that. Like, no matter how suboptimal certain things seem about the team, I got a feeling just until we get to the elimination stage where it's a 2-2 game against Vitality, these sorts of matchups, I'm not too worried because I know they've got the firepower with himself, with Ultimate, who can, definitely deliver some big moments against the weaker sides. I do feel like I've got enough firepower to just cruise through 3-1, 3-0 in this kind of bracket. It's always a bit iffy to put my faith entirely in a team with Yakindar right now. He has been up, down, left, right, anywhere but just dead straight consistent. But it's been good enough. We still have Naf, who's solid as a rock, and JKS, who somehow isn't clashing too badly with him either. So the solidity and the foundation is there. Great deal of variance in the top end, but it should be plenty to get me through here. Liquid, I feel comfortable having them as a 1 pick, despite them not really being that highly seeded in this actual bracket.
maybe it's because they had to beat Crew and Bestia to be here.
Ooh.
Their run is a little bit, shaky. They beat Furia. They lost to WildCard in the opening round. But
Yeah.
it felt like there were quite a few upsets kind of across the RMRs. I think in terms of those opening rounds, maybe not Europe A, but Europe B, Asia, maybe a little bit of an upset as well. And America was kind of rife with them as well. So I don't know how I feel about Liquid. It was nice to see Ultimate kind of get a bit of confidence back. Yukindar had a pretty good game against Furia as well. Both those guys, I guess, are the big question marks as to whether or not they'll actually be consistent or not, or will they flounder and flop at this RMR? To be honest, Liquid do give me the vibe that they could just bomb out at this stage of the tournament, to be quite honest with you. Just because I don't really have faith that both Ultimate and Yukindar will actually maintain that level.
To be fair, you say Yukindar had one good game against Furia. I guess you mean that first map where he got 19 kills, because then he went on to go 3 for 14 and 5 for 11.
He was unreal in that first map.
Yeah, he was incredibly Yukindarish in that series. Like, it was unbelievable to watch, because, we all have that. Because I did think about the series like you did, where you just said, oh, he had that good game against Furia. In my head, I did think back on it. It's like, yeah, I remember him being really good, noticing that. Then when he went to terrible, I just forgot it, because it's just Yukindar, isn't it? It's just
you just have selective memory deletion. Like, oh yeah, we remember the good parts.
But clearly they won one of those 2 maps. So Hawka, my question is, if we do get an iffy Yukindar, I still think they make it through. Do you think that level's high enough?
Yeah, I think so. I still think that, like, I think at this stage, Ultimate should be good enough the AWP wise, just because, like, I literally picked him in my fantasy for the Americas RMR because I thought this is the exact tournament where his aggressive AWPing just works and he will just farm people. And I think there's still enough, like, bad teams here. Well, not bad teams, just not great teams that he'll probably still do pretty well. So I think that'll be fine. And then, yeah, you have the consistency of twists. Naf was so good at the Americas RMR. He's just, again, always there, always just doing what he needs to do. That's also helpful. Like, Naf should be one of the best players at this stage for me. And having those consistent star players, I don't think many other teams have that at this stage. And then JKS is fine as well. So I think they're all right. I actually think their team play has been, like, a little better than I thought it would be in that RMR. I thought it was actually all right. So yeah, I'm actually not worried about Liquid. I think that's a fine pick.
But that's because they were playing Crew and Bestia. That's why the team play looks so good. They actually could. They didn't have Bestia. Maybe the disappointment of that RMR because they could have done better, but they choked, I think, under the lights. To be quite honest, they weren't even playing to their standard within the domestic competition.
Yeah, that's fair, because no, I mean, I've since then watched, like, a Thomasin demo, and I'm just watching this guy and I'm like, how did they end up losing this series to WildCard? Because I watched his Mirage game just specifically earlier today, and then I was like, how on earth did they go and lose that Anubis? Like, that just looks like a choke job to me. So no, an interesting series of games for Liquid there, but our 2-pick, Yuumi, you can go anywhere with this. There's only one team missing from the board.
Yeah, I mean, I'm diving straight into the underdogs because I just think these guys are too good to be in this category. I'm going with Fnatic.
Oh,
and
okay.
I could have gone a different direction, as you seem to think, but no,
I didn't expect you to be a Fnatic believer. I'm going to be honest. I thought you were going a different, more Eastern European route.
I'm a Blame F believer. This guy was absolutely roaring in their games when push came to shove. It was Blame F that got, like, hella opening attempts and entries for this team. I think he was like 12-0 in opening duels. I remember, well, I tuned into a Snake and Banter, the opening bit where they talk about Blame F, and Maui was on the ball with 12 opening attempts, 100% hit rate, 4 of them were in the OT, and that's Blame F, the guy that everyone accuses of being a hard baiter. That is no longer the case on this team. Like, they have rejigged how much responsibility people have in rounds, and to me, that's really good to see, because I think it was always one of the big problems with Blame as a player, you can still say he's, he has a tendency to save, and he has a tendency not to try hard enough to win rounds that are definitely still achievable. But he has definitely pushed himself out of that comfort zone so that he can be that reliable closer, because Mattis, as an entry and as an opener, does quite a lot for this team already. So that power combination is already making a very good case that they could be, I'd say, in the top 5 rifle pairings we have in the major circuit right now.
Damn. I thought I was a Mattis believer.
Wow.
Like, you are fully behind it, and I'm down for it. I'm up. I love that idea. I mean, I saw Fnatic going through the RMRs just because Blame F, for me, not only is he, he gets his mojo going as well on the ecos. We've seen the numbers, the stats don't really lie on that, but I also know that against worse teams, he understands his role in this world. He knows he's supposed to be the bully. He's going to go out, assert dominance. And so I was really confident in them for that reason. But here, yeah, I mean, calling them that level of a duo, I don't know, Hawka, I don't know how you feel about them. I mean, I've been very vocal about my love for Mattis, and, I've made an entire case for that pick, basically off the back of just him at the RMRs. Do you see this duo being that potent, that powerful?
Well, I mean, Yumi's doing a bit of glazing there. He's been hired by the donut factory.
Who are the other duos? Like
At the entire major?
Nico Malbs is the one that jumps out immediately at me. What other strong rifling duos can you think of?
I don't know, like Flames and Spinks. That's pretty good. That's better.
Is that better?
Oh.
I actually would argue it's not.
Oh no!
I think
Donk and anyone on Spirit.
Yeah.
Anyone on Spirit, Magic's not that hot. Zontix,
right.
He did good at this RMR.
Yeah, but Donk's cracked, so it's fine.
I know Donk's cracked. I'm not saying he's not.
I'd take Donk and Chopper, mate. I'd take Donk and Chopper over Blame.
Right.
All right, let's not get too slanderous. But,
yeah, to be honest, I like the Fnatic pick mainly because they have that experience factor, which other teams don't. And this to me, basically, you picking Fnatic here, I almost see it as like a bet against maybe some of the Americas teams, for example, because those are the other teams that I see around this region. And that's kind of the reason I don't mind it, because, I mean, we'll see what you guys think later, but you look at, like, I don't know, Complexity, MIBR. Are these teams that excite me that much? Nah, not really. Like, Fnatic could easily beat these teams, I think. And I used to think that Body was like a bad caller. I actually think he's okay now. He's okay in my book. They looked all right at this event, which is kind of all I needed, especially when you have Nork, who's fine as an AWPer as well. They've just got a lot of things that are like good enough for me to be like, I see them as like I actually think they'll be a 3-2 team here. Like when I did my little bracket, I think they just scrape their way through. And as you said, a big part of that is, I still think, again, Blame F at this level. You said in the RMR he'll be able to bully people. I still think he does that here, honestly, against quite a lot of these teams. And I think he really has understood that entry factor. I remember though, watching that game back, I swear a lot of those entries did come on like CT side. And I felt like half of them were kind of just him, going for either a standard opening move or just actually holding his spot. So, that's something. And on Nuke, he was playing yards, so you kind of expect to get those opening fights anyway. But I think that's fine still. Like, I don't think he's going to go crazy aggressive, but I don't think he needs to. So,
we won't talk about the fact that it went into a double overtime game versus Eklot of all people. But, it's that's the worrying sign, I guess, for Fnatic. But, I mean, they've just got such a caliber to them that I think they can just kind of bully or push some of these teams around in this RMR. I'm not maybe as confident. Like, even though I will rate this rifling duo quite highly, I do think Nork is still, not very impactful on the AWP. Body has always been like a flashes kind of guy where he will have these moments where he actually does come up with like a crazy multi-kill, but he's not consistent. And, even then, Crims for me is still, he's okay. He's done okay. He's a role player. He's supposed to be the emotional rock. And I had worries about him going into the RMR in particular, because we had seen him in Serbia at the Res event, and he was losing his shit when they were losing some of these rounds. But when they were in these like deep overtimes and pressure was highest, he actually seemed the most stoic of all of them for Fnatic, which is exactly what I want him to be for this team, as opposed to what I saw in Serbia. So I think there was some emotional regulation that happened when it came to the actual majors. Maybe Crims was upset that they were on a poor trajectory heading in, and since then things have stabilized.
You see, I'm kind of glad you picked them, because I felt myself later in the show going down the Fnatic route again, but this time feeling really shaky about it, you know, like kind of forcing myself into it just because I do believe in those two. But I have lingering concerns about Body and Crim specifically, because I'm not convinced that they can really bring it. And the calling, I mean, some of the positions Matisse has to fight his way through just to get some of the fights, like win some of the fights he wins. I mean, I've tried measuring them statistically. It's insane. Like the fights he has to win, he's making these crazy adjustments just to get an opening. And I'm like, at some point you do have to just blame the IGL. Like, make it easier. Like, the coach IGL, this cannot always be so hard. Why is it so easy for everyone else to get a clean fight, but Matisse basically has to walk through hell to get it? On the T side specifically.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can rely on Crims having back-to-back solid fragging events. We haven't been able to for a long time now. He still gets the credit, you know, as, he is the support player, but I've seen too much like sub 0.9 Counter-Strike from him to really be that invested. So I'm hopeful, because I would like to see them go through. I would like to see, you know, BlameF continue to push people around, Matisse find these openings, and Nork potentially just step up, you know. Not necessarily go out and dominate the openings, but maybe win a clutch or two. Make me remember that you're on this team without me having to physically scratch my head and go, the AWPer.
Afro.
Oh, and I know it's not Afro, because Afro makes me almost violently like angry.
Yeah, it's
like,
not
what
great.
is Bro doing?
Yeah, I think the final stuff I guess I'll say on Fnatic is like they also did just randomly start playing Nuke here at the RMR, which they were banning a lot, which like they actually looked surprisingly okay on. But I now thinking back on it, I do kind of agree with you. Like, I thought the in-game leading was better here, but I actually think it's just gone from, I thought Body was really bad to maybe he's just like below average now. Like, I still don't think, I don't think this team's called well still, because I feel like they do most of their work CT side actually, and it seems to just come down to individuals having ideas more than anything. So that's maybe the issue. But I also think, touching on the Crims point, the reason I think it's fine is because I don't think he's a win or lose condition for this team, except for maybe when you get into actually really high pressure scenarios. And I actually think he's still good in those high pressure scenarios, and he just seems to elevate in those, you know, positions. So yeah, I think this was I don't know if I'd have gone for it first round, but I was they were in the back of my mind, Fnatic. They're in the back of my mind.
Yeah, well, now you get to show us exactly what's in the front of your mind. You've got 2 picks now.
I do.
And yeah, very open board. All the favorites except one available to you.
So just so I remember, how many favorites and underdogs do I need to take?
2 and 2.
2 of each.
2 and 2, yep.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, I feel like, yeah, okay. I think I just go Mongolz as a favorite. I think I'd do it. I think they're just always like good enough. Just all round, you know, you've got Blitz. He's a smart guy, smart in-game leader. I know that, like, I don't think they've been at their best fully as of late, like at least in the Asia RMR. But before that, they were actually doing really well. Like they'd beaten Heroic, they'd beaten 3D Max, teams that we've now seen doing really well at the EU RMR. And yeah, I mean, I think that series against Drillers, just the Mirage map, I guess I wasn't like fully convinced, because, you know, you lose against Drillers on a map, you're a bit like, ooh. But overall, they just have enough. Like, Techno's aim is so good. Xenio's pretty good at times. They've just got like solid players, solid enough players. Senzu also very solid. Like, they're just good enough in like basically all aspects of Counter-Strike for me. Like, they've got solid players, good players, not great. They've got good cooling, not great. They've got good team play, not great. Like, they're just good at everything. So I'm like, I don't think enough things can go wrong for them to lose here. And they've also, like, seeding wise, they're in theory in like not a great seed. I think, like, when I did my matchups, if all the favorites win their opening games, then they get VP in the second round. So I guess that's like, it's not the best draw, but at least in the first round, they've got the rare Atom game, which I think most of us think is going to be fine. So yeah, like they just feel like the exact team where I'm like, you guys make it through, maybe a chance for a 3-0, maybe a 3-1, but they'll be fine.
Can I just say, it is dumb. We only get 3 slots. Why are 2 Asian teams facing off against each other in the opening round? Like, I understand you can't have rules that say you cannot get seeded against someone from your own region because, you have, 8 from Europe or... Yeah, 8 from Europe? No, 6 from Europe. 5 from Americas and 3 from Asia? Something like that? I've done the math terribly there, but...
It's 14 teams. That's
I don't even know what that added up to.
Yeah, the math is
trying to figure it
actually
out.
genuinely awful. But we only have 3 slots. Surely the seeding should have been rejigged in some way so that didn't happen in the opening round, but I guess it does mean that they don't have to play each other in an elimination game if it so happens. So
yeah, that's a nice detail, I guess.
True.
But no, for me, yeah, this team, we'd like to talk about them. They come up pretty much every time they can on this show, I think. Like, it's very rare that they don't get picked. I'm a big fan of, what Blitz has done. I like conceptually how he's brought in kids and kind of like mold them into roles, and has there seems like these specific moments where you feel like, oh, this is when Mazinho shines. It's like Inferno when they're trying to go up A and he just contacts up towards site, just facing into pit, taking those sorts of angles. He can just rip heads off pretty comfortably. We're like, oh yeah, that's his spot to shine. But for the most part, they're still role players. It's an interesting balance. And that makes great use of some of the most mechanically gifted players available, I think. Like, these guys are actually so sharp. It's just about finding the best way to use them, and Blitz has done a great job. Like, him and Mara deserve a lot of credit, and we keep saying it, and we're gonna have to keep saying it until it magically blows up in their face, which at this rate it seems like it won't.
yeah, and the thing that's been interesting to document is that as they've done more of these international lands, Blitz is taking less opening fights. He's not throwing himself out there. He's not, the space-taking in-game leader fragger like he once was. I think there was an active choice to take a step back and let players like Techno, Mizinho, Senzu go in for some of those opening fights, and if they have an idea of what they want to do, then they'll facilitate that. And it took them a little bit of time to make that work, but now that it is working to a degree, I still think it's a little shaky, and you can see that the coordination isn't always there to make the opening idea work as well as like top level teams. But these players are sharp enough, and now that it's working up to an acceptable degree, this team is a lot more lethal now. I think they've got more options as to how they can break into rounds and close them as well, because I actually have, I guess, grown additional faith in players' abilities to clutch on this team. Before, it was only Blitz, maybe Techno, that I would trust in a clutch situation. Now I think Senzu, 9-10, and Mizinho all have shown the capacity to be able to close in those rounds. I think the culture, or the sort of group ethos of this team, is actually pretty stone cold, which I think is what makes them a really interesting team to just document. Because usually when it's smaller regions, we're thinking about them being so emotionally charged and so volatile. Like, I'm thinking about, the Turkish scene, for example, or if we're thinking about some of these emerging South American squads, it's always so passion driven that in those high pressure moments, you sometimes think they won't be able to recover from that. The Mongolz seem like a team that just don't get phased by losing dumb rounds or losing like close clutches. They're weirdly an anomaly in that way.
Yeah, especially for such a young team. Like, they have so many young players. You'd have thought that would be an issue, but for whatever reason, it isn't. The other thing I think the one aspect of this team that maybe is the one thing that I would hope gets better with time is, I think outside of Blitz, I don't know if many of the individuals are that good at actually making decisions and moves like mid-round. I think it either has to be Blitz kind of calling, or like that's kind of it. I think a lot of these other players, like, I don't see them as players who are very, I don't even know the word for it, just like
cerebral.
They don't, or they just don't do many things by themselves, I guess, which is like that's maybe the one aspect that holds them back. But I think Blitz does such a solid job elsewhere that it kind of masks that well enough that, yeah, they're just an easy pick here for me, guys. So easy.
Yeah, they are. And I think it's a credit that it seems like you're talking about, they probably have that extra step still to get. If those guys can become more cerebral players, and you can start letting them be a little looser, finding moments that will surprise other teams more consistently, because, maybe it gets a little easier to prepare when there's not those moments of just independent thought. So no, taking kids, giving them the simplest jobs first, because we remember the early days. It's all blitz and the rest of the guys. If you can hit some shots in key moments from your pretty defaulty spots, awesome. And it's evolved. Maybe one day we'll be looking at a team and thinking, damn, how far they've come. There's now nothing wrong with any of their play. They've won 7 majors, and Mongolia is the #1 region in Counter-Strike. The Mara and Blitz dream is finally complete. But okay, you've got another pick. Are you going to go with another favorite?
I think I might as well take an underdog at this point, because a lot of the favorites I think I'm fairly okay with. The question is who? Let me have a look. I mean, I feel like there's only 2 really to choose from in the underdogs at this point. And I just, you know what? I actually do believe in Cloud9. I'm going to take the Cloud9. I got to do it. I got to do it. I was so uncertain with this team because they're a weird team because they had not played much Counter-Strike leading into the RMR, which meant that I just had no clue what to expect. And even in the RMR, I didn't get as much data on them as I wanted, because the teams they actually beat, I'm like, okay, you beat Sangal, which I would have rated into the tournament, but Sangal didn't do that well. You beat Sinners, you made a bit of a meal of it. Okay, it's not a great result. And then the only top team they played was FaZe twice, and it wasn't really that competitive against FaZe. They took a map off FaZe, but it didn't feel like they were ever going to beat them in that series, which you wouldn't expect necessarily. But they got kind of blown out on the maps that they lost. So maybe that doesn't look great, but I just think the main thing is they have the big firepower now of Icy and Heavy God. I mean, Heavy God is the truth. As Maui's been saying for the longest time, everyone's finally getting to see it. And Exile just now has to be the 3rd best player on this team, which thankfully he can just about manage to do on this team, because he's still nowhere near as good as he used to be, but it's okay, it's fine. And then Boomich, I actually think is underrated as an in-game leader. This team has come together and they looked way more cohesive than I thought. I'm pretty sure when I was looking at some of their trade numbers, they were actually very good at this tournament. Maybe that's partly because they're playing against some of the weaker teams, but we'll pretend that that's not the case, just so that it looks better for me. But it's also just a case of a lot of these other underdogs kind of suck, and I don't think there's much chance for them. So I want to get an underdog pick in now. And just the firepower of those 2 big players, again, I think that makes a huge difference at this stage. When going up against some of these, more middling teams from, say, the Americas, or even some of the other EU teams, having Icy and Heavy God to fall back on is huge. And then, yeah, the rest of the team, again, they have enough vets where I believe in them. So yeah, there's still a team that I think have a pretty big range of how good they could be. But because of that, if they do hit a good peak and just have their players show up at this stage, I think they can make it.
I'm kind of mad. I really wanted Cloud9 to drop all the way. I think it was a pipe dream, I think, after I found out I was taking the 1st and therefore the 6th pick. I was like, yeah, okay, it's pretty stuffed. I'm not gonna waste the #1 pick on Cloud9.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, the Heavy God, some people watch Endpoint play. Not everyone has time to watch a team like Endpoint play.
Yeah.
So some people's belief started much sooner. And
some people don't even have time to watch OG play.
Lord, yeah. And I remember also watching, it was actually Maui co-streaming OG going through the open qualies for the last major, or the major before that, which is where I think a lot of people's Heavy God interest started peaking. I mean, for me, that team had a couple reasons to watch, but Heavy God was the only one that actually really showed up on both sides of the game. Never forget Rangali, just absent T side. That was always something. But no, Heavy God is doing a lot of the lifting. Icy has his moments, he has his maps. And in those moments, I'm like, oh, I can kind of see why everyone's so hyped. And then in the other maps, I'm like, there you go, that's why I'm not. There's really big dips that I just don't like the look of. And yeah, you're right about Exile 100%. He has to be the 3rd best player. It's just about been good enough at that for now to keep them winning. We've got to basically roll the dice and say, yeah, we're going to take the positives we saw against Namiga, I guess at times against Sinners, and against Sango, and just say that's the good side of them. They're going to make it work here. They're going to outperform just their underdog status and go through. But when I look at the matchups against the higher ranked teams, I'm a bit, yeah, on their day they win it. But if they play like a big and a BO3, I kind of think the sensible money's against them. So that's kind of me trying to talk myself out of losing the pick, you know, just trying to make it seem like it's all good. I wanted the other underdogs. I love the idea of the other underdogs. It's fine. It's fine. Please.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat as you, Hawka, where I just didn't know how to feel about this team because of the lack of matches. And the matches that they did play, they did not look very good at all. Calling looked shaky, team play looked kind of garbage. And to be honest, Inters and Boomich just couldn't hold their own. In a lot of these games, so it just felt like they needed to get one and they wouldn't even get their one very often. And I would just think, you know, this is I used to really back Inters as a support player. I used to kind of back Boomich just like a fragger, and they're not even getting their numbers anymore. I do see some of that potential in Icy now. He's being more active than he was on his previous team. God, I struggle to even remember what it was. Amcal. He was always like a super passive player, only playing for clutches or saving, which was, you know, people give James flack for that all the time. And I was just thinking, there's another one right there, guys, but everyone's hyping this one up for some reason. I do like Heavy God a lot though, and Heavy God and Axile, I'm fine with that. So I don't hate the pick. I do think that they unfortunately played two very big behemoths in the tier 2 space in Sangal and Amiga that just were not playing to their standard.
Yeah.
Like both of them looked like they were a shell of their former selves. It was actually really kind of heartbreaking, to be honest, because it's the most important tournament and they're just totally disrupted by how bright the lights are in the hotel rooms. So
yeah. That's crazy.
It's super disappointing, actually. You know, you'd think that was the type of environment where they do quite well, and instead they crumbled. And you know, for Cloud9, that's obviously a good test for them, because you say a month ago they go up against those teams. I would wager they lose like 9 times out of 10, and for them now to be in a position where they're maybe trending up at the right time, I could see some promise in this team.
Yeah. The Sangirl part especially devastated me. I was just like, yeah, they're climbing. I want to buy the stock, you know, and I think next year going into the big shuffle, I'm thinking, where's Jota going to go? So many teams might want to look for a new IGL coach duo. These two have built quite a special something, especially if you need to rebuild, you need to sign younger players, you can't afford some of the prices being thrown around. What a great duo to look into. Probably taken a bit of a hit, their stock, after this event, just because of the nature of how they fell apart.
Oh, that team's gonna get blitzed probably. You know, I could imagine LNZ going to a different team, Jota going off to Eternal Fire, and Samey definitely getting replaced. So
yeah, it's just a question of where they were going to end up. Like I was having ambitions of like throwing them into top teams, like as cores, like if teams need a new core.
Right.
But I think that's probably dead. But let's get back on track, because Sangul are not here, hence the misery. Yumi, it's your pick again. Take it away.
Yeah, you know what? I'll live and die by the sword. I'm picking VP.
Oh, Lord.
We're back, baby. We are back. It is Norban time. Even though their run wasn't always, you know, against the toughest of teams, we are back. and for no other reason than Flit actually having decent production in a position where he is set up to succeed. He has struggled in quite a lot of their officials. He did not do that at this RMR. Electronic actually able to pull off some electronic-esque rounds, and Jane wasn't just fucking saving all the time. Even though every time he saves, everyone feels the need to call it out, even though every other AWPer does it. All these other teams do it. He is Voldemort of saves. and we have to villainize him. I don't know. I find it so hard to believe that this team cannot be successful when it has, I would argue, 3.5 top level riflers. You know, Norbert's a little like on and off. He's very explosive. You'll have these maps where he's actually the best player in the world, and then you'll have other ones where he's the worst player in the world. But he's maybe the one variance where I am expecting everyone else to maintain a floor, and then you can have a Norbert. You know, the same way that Virtus.pro used to have Yakindar as this high variance, very risk taker type entry fragger. They sometimes use Norbert in that way, but more recently, I'm seeing that they are not just hinging that all on the one player now. They are actually trying to get Electronic to take opening fights. They're trying to get Flit to take opening duels as well, and they're leaving Fame to do his like late lurking best bit impression very often. I mean, this team has really, like, honestly, world-class riflers and Jame, who can be like a top 10 AWPer, maybe even top 5 AWPer if he was put in more favorable positions. But as much as I want to be critical of Virtus.pro's sort of macro decision making, to be honest, at this RMR, I didn't see massive glaring problems. I see sometimes, you know, especially on their recent decline, they would make calls that just honestly, they'd send one person out to probe, they'd die, and then they would save. And I would just think, are we even trying to win Counter-Strike rounds anymore? And it doesn't make any sense to me. I didn't see that so much here, which is, these are all positives for me to get back on the Virtus.pro poison chalice, I suppose.
Yeah, you love that Kool-Aid. Hawka, I have to ask, okay, they made it through. That's true. 3-1 looks impressive. But for 3.5 top-class riflers struggling to defeat Sashi, Nine Pandas, TSM, and PassionUA, does that fill you with confidence? Are you sad to see this pick go past you?
Yeah, I just don't know what to think of this team. The thing that I find with this team that's so confusing is, and I think it is because of Jame, it's like these riflers, I almost don't have an understanding of them as riflers anymore to an extent, because I always used to think of Flit as like more someone who wants to work in late rounds, and now I feel like he's pretty damn aggressive, and like, okay, that can be fine, but now Fame is like working in late rounds a lot, and I don't know if that's suited to his skill set. I'm kind of confused by it all. And then when Electronic joins the team, it feels to me like he wants to play like the opposite style of Jame and wants these like high up-tempo rounds where he can entry, which they are kind of working in now, but it still just feels like a Frankenstein's monster of a team where I kind of just don't understand the roles that well. And maybe that's because, like, I'll be honest, I haven't been following them as closely as some of the other teams. So, you know, maybe the riflers' roles do make sense. But that's the confusing part to me. And then also, like, yeah, like it's like having Jame and Electronic, because Electronic is going to have ideas as to how he wants to play. That just feels like you've picked like two opposite players to me. You've gone, all right, Jame just wants to sit there and do nothing. Electronic, clearly at his best when he can go in aggressively. And the annoying thing I'd find is that there'd be like an occasional round where I feel like Electronic got his way and he got to go for like a fast play. Like I remember, I don't know, Dust 2 plays where they just go fast up short and I'd be like, yes, Electronic can just win you the round like this. And then it would happen just too infrequently for me. Because when it does happen, it obviously would work. But yeah, I didn't really I'm not going to lie, these weren't the most entertaining games for me to go back and be like, I've got to go back and watch these VP games against Sashi, Nine Pat. Like, I didn't really get to catch much of them because I was already catching up on the RMRs, and these were not the games that really, popped out to me. But yeah, I just don't understand this team. That's all. That's it.
I think the confusion is fair because, no, you're entirely right about the sort of role dichotomy that's kind of switched up. Like, I did also have Fame more on the aggressive side, like in my mind at some point. I think the switch happened far earlier than just this sort of event, where Fame is more of a closer, Flit very much the aggressor, more of a T-side problem than anything, like T-side question, T-side idea. But no, my issue is just, yeah, in this event, weirdly enough, they did a very anti-VP thing where they like outfragged the hell out of people, yet just close won the game or even lost sometimes. I'm like, how do VP, usually when they win rounds, is there's, you know, no one's dying. It's bomb plants, and then when they're losing rounds, they're saving. They're not getting a bunch of kills. So I was just a bit confused by the VP we saw here. And the electronic that tried to be aggressive, more often than not in this event, I felt like if he took a T opening fight, he was losing it. Like, am I going crazy? Like, just in this RMR, he just lost every opening pretty much he took the entire time. So there's some
But in
things
the
that,
mid rounds,
Oh my God, he actually did.
But in
Right?
the mid rounds,
the numbers are
Bro,
crazy.
He won 15% of his opening fights on T side. How is that possible? Electronic. How is that possible for Electronic? That's crazy.
So that's the part that's just a bit
Wow.
off for me, is there's certain little details that just don't seem to line up. But it's such a small sample. It's across 6 maps. I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it. The fact that we saw Jame actually bring some impact is... He even mentioned it in interviews. They were so impressed and hyped up about it. And like, yo, the IGL did stuff. Like, everyone lost their shit. And I'm very excited to see if Jame can come back. Because when he is clutching, he is making trades happen. When Jame is active, his hit rate was historically like really impressive. Like, you used to think if James scoped up on an angle, someone appears within that scope, he's going to hit them.
dead. Yeah.
That was the part of James that was actually fun to watch from his POV. So I'm hoping we get more of that. I do hope for you, Yumi, that it's not continuing to just poison you. It's not the cursed Kool-Aid that just forever drags you down.
This time will be different. This time
I
will
think they
be
should
different.
still make it through, right? Like,
They should.
even if
But
I
they should
don't-
have won a lot of games historically over the course of this
Yeah.
year.
Also, what I pick Astralis, and then Device decides he's not going to play. So, you know, I am aware I am cursed in my picking, and I've decided to go back to an old curse. Just on the role thing, I think it is just everybody plays a spot, and whether or not they go to that spot is how aggressive you can be. And very frequently, Fame's side of the map is not chosen to be the end objective. So that's why he's maybe not being as aggressive. You know, I always just think, like, for example, ancient T sides, Fame is just always A main, Flit is always B ramp, and everything in between is like electronic elbow, and they poke and probe. And I would imagine, at least if I'm Jame, I'm segmenting the round. If I want enough space for electronic to feel like he can make moves, I will give him space in the round to be like, okay, opening 25 30 seconds, that's you. The next 45 seconds after that, that's all me. If I'm Jame, you know, that way you still allow for, you know, some of the experience and some of the aggressive pieces to feel like they have some onus or some ability to play make outside of what is just the system. So
Yeah.
I felt like I saw moments like that. Maybe that was what led to Electronics' poor T sides. Maybe it's just like, I'm just gonna swing and I'm gonna kill him. Someone flash, and everyone's like, yeah, someone, not me, someone, not me though.
Yeah, give him the first 25, 30 seconds of the round, but also give him Norbert to explicitly take the first duel and let Electronic trade. Let him,
Yeah.
you know, because he's a phenomenal late round player. He just also really likes the aggressive early moves. Like, he can play really well in a post plant and all this other stuff. So yeah, maybe try and get the most out of him. I have 2 picks here. I believe, yes, we do.
You do.
I do. Oh my god. I do not like where this is going to end up.
I like how he left the Furia. The highest seed is still there.
Oh, the highest seed, yes. Who doesn't want Furia? Me. I don't want Furia.
I mean, I picked him for the
Who
Americas
else do you
RMR,
take
but they
it?
scraped through. So
They scraped.
Yeah.
I was kind of annoyed about that. I was like, I should have won that RMR far more resoundingly. Fury had no right going through. That was ugly. So ugly. Speaking of no right, Big had no right playing that well. And I've decided I'm going to buy it. It's real. I'm taking
yeah.
Big as a favorite.
Hmm.
Now look, I've had a lot of negative things to say about Searson mostly in the past, but you can't just walk into this event, beat Heroic, and then beat the mighty PassionUA without some people noticing. And some of those people are me. I think we saw just the sort of the true potential of the moves as they were painted to us sort of developing here. We saw a really good level out of Rigon relative to what we'd seen previously. We continued to get close to I don't think it was quite the best, but close to the best out of JDC. It was a disappointing Crimbo, but the fact that they were able to win without Crimbo carrying their little socks, like, that's pretty impressive to me. Something we haven't seen for a long time also is Tabson really contribute on the fragging front. That's worried me in past events. I criticized the pick before when we went to the RMRs. Here he was able to actually not quite be a bully. He didn't reach, that sort of level, but he actually played Tabson's Counter-Strike. So I'm buying that this is actually going to be the Searson, potentially the Rigon we get going forward. Very questionable on the Rigon, but mostly the Searson. And just saying that, yeah, Big are going to be pretty well structured. They're going to have a trio of players I can actually trust to frag in most maps. And I think that should be enough to get them through here. I see a lot of the teams in the underdog like sort of tier having way bigger issues to deal with than Big will. And I also think they'll have good matchups into some of the favorite teams as well. Teams that I don't have much faith in, like Complexities, like Furias, like Virtus Pros, where I'm like, Big, given a best of 3 against this team, I believe in to win 2 out of 3 maps. So, yeah, a bit of fake hype about the PassionUA thing. Had to throw that in for comedy, but I do think this is a little bit of an awakening for this roster, and they are going to deliver at least what I consider the bare minimum result here, which is make it through.
Yeah, they're still not running Rigon as like an entry though, which is...
It is odd.
Yeah, it is strange because it's JDC that's really going in first still. I think what was nice to see is that Big on their CT sides were doing a better job of kind of enabling Rigon to be like almost like an aggressive site anchor. Like they were flashing for him. They were actually setting him up for opening picks as opposed to just leaving him on a bomb site and letting him fester and sit, which has never really been his MO.
No.
And even when it has been his responsibility on Guild or Bad News Eagles, he would just dry push it at a certain stage in the round, and the higher you get up in the rungs of Counter-Strike, the more predictable that is, especially when there's only one of you doing it. That becomes a lot more anti-stratable than if everybody on your team is doing it. So in a way, it's nice to see that Big are sort of leaning into some of those older tendencies, but also some of the strengths that make Rigon a good player. But still, the roles are a little bit funny to me. I'm not sure I quite understand how they're structured on T side and whether or not that's going to see, I guess, greater change moving forward. But they wouldn't want to make any drastic decisions, I guess, now that they're in the opening stage. So it's a bit confusing, and I just don't think Searson is going to keep up that level. I'm going to be honest. He was literally killing everybody on CT sides with the AWP. On like opening fights, he was hunting for opening duels, and he was killing everybody, and it was honestly kind of crazy. And flashes of Searson of old, which was great, but I just know that I've seen him have a pop off, and then a week later be back to being a noob with the snipers again. I just don't have faith that he has consistency built in him.
I mean, are they playing it in hotel rooms again this next stage? Maybe that's
I think
what Searson
so.
No,
needs.
isn't from opening, or is it from elimination stage onwards? We have that small crowd.
I think it's elimination stage.
Okay, well, if
Yeah,
it's
I don't
hotel
actually know.
Counter-Strike, even better.
Oh mate, that's the dream. Yeah,
Hotel lands.
exactly. I actually think I don't know. I kind of felt like at least at the events that I saw, Searson seemed like he was sort of slowly trending up, not like massively ahead of this, but it felt like he was doing enough. It looks like actually, weirdly, in all of these online games, he wasn't even doing that well, which is kind of confusing by Searson standards. But hey ho, we'll go with it. Yeah, I think the interesting part is the Tabson uptick, because I feel like he does do a lot of like dirty work. Like he's not giving himself good positions anymore, which is fair. He's actually got some decent players, but I don't know if that's sustainable, because his stats were pretty damn good. I still think though, really the win against Heroic was the most impressive, surely. Like I think Heroic are actually a very solid team. It was kind of a weird map, because I remember on Heroic, it was like Kicksam was fragging, and I think Nertz, who was fragging the whole tournament, was fragging, and then there was like no one else doing anything on the Heroic team. So, whether you want to give credit to Big for shutting everyone else down or just say that the heroic players had an off day, that's up to you. But yeah, this was a solid performance. I kind of agree with you. I think Sis, and I think he'll continue it enough. And I always actually thought that Rigon on that old B&E team, he was like basically the one player I looked at and I was like, I could actually imagine you playing for a different squad. I don't think that you're playing as crazy aggressive as everyone else. Like, and when you do, it seems like there's a bit more like thought or just understanding behind why you're going aggressive. You know, it felt like he had a bit of a better understanding than the other guys who were just like, I just fight you because I'm better than you.
Yeah.
So I think that at least is something that's helpful with Rigon. But yeah, you are right. A bit weird that he's not like in the entry pack on this team. It feels like to me it's like Absent if it's like just going in first just to die, and then JDC quite a lot. So
that's not even in like high traffic positions really. Like JDC dominates most of those positionally, so it is strange.
But and the Crimbo one's the only like he's not like he's had some tournaments I feel like where he comes to the big tournaments and I just don't see as much from him. Like I think even at Pro League I don't think he was even that good. So I'm a bit like I don't know what's going on with Crimbo. Like it feels like he had like that bad form earlier on in the year, and I don't know. I'm a bit concerned, but also like I feel like he should be really good. So I'm hoping he just actually picks it up because he was their lowest rated player at this stage. Like how does that happen?
Well, that happens when everything works and you don't need this kid to miracle clutch 1v5.
Yeah,
around,
I suppose,
you know?
yeah.
Like, that's kind of the problem. Like, he's historically, when he's put up huge numbers, you then sometimes go back and watch, you're like, oh, right, they're a 2v4, he makes it winnable or wins it. And you're like, I get it now. And the Rigon, he's perfectly suited, I think, in terms of the way he liked to play CT side, for this aggressive anchor sort of like almost meta that some teams are shifting towards. Like, I feel in my like experience of it throughout the year or so has been it started with like Metasport going to like a full rifle lineup in terms of star power, with Jaquinho just being a flashbang generator who calls. Like that was his role. Like Sus was aggressive at his extremities. Adam B and Nilo obviously wanted to brawl, be involved, and it kind of started there for the way that's the first place I noticed it. But I've seen other players now like Jota. I've had Jumpy tell me straight up, yeah, Jota is playing technically anchor spots. But if he says, I'm going to do this, go aggressive, go start brawling, he gets that freedom to do it. And I feel like it's just a meta that works with CS2, with the way swinging works, with how a lot of the rifles want to play. I feel that's going to suit Rigon. So I do like that they've, as a team, kind of agreed upon shifting towards that and allowing him to do it.
Just so we are aware, because I had to fact check, I'm wrong. It is from the opening stage and the elimination stage will be in the Shanghai World Expo Center.
Oh, it's over.
There will be a crowd.
It's
over.
There will
be a crowd. 5,000,
so
which can accommodate 5,000 spectators.
Jeez.
Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Just undo everything. I'm cool. I'm cool. This is it. He loves China. He feels right at home out there. I hope. I need to pick an underdog. And this is where things get fun, because in my estimation, probably the two most comfortable underdog picks for me to justify are off the board.
Yeah. That's why I took one, because I'm looking at it.
Yeah, it's not great, is it? Because I have, I've tried to make cases for some of these teams before. Like I picked WildCard in the Americas, was very happy with how they did. There's reasons I could pick Imperial, certain players I like. But I'm going to glaze someone who's been glazed enough on this show, but probably deserves a little more. I'm going to take GamerLegion. I usually pick based on things like star power, the IGL, how certain roles might mix. I'm picking them because they probably have the best coach in the stage. In terms of the results this man generates with, honestly, he gets mad sometimes when we got mad once when we said it a couple times. He's had complete duds. Like, trash players and made things work. And with this lineup, I didn't really get the Towson move. To me, he seemed like one of the just endless stock of like default Danish riflers we have in tier 2. Where it's like I don't really see his the ceiling being that high, despite him being good enough to be here and smart enough, plays the right way, all that good stuff. That doesn't really inspire you to think this guy's going to go places. Well, he comes into this team. I wasn't sure where this team was going. And I've just been entirely wrong. I mean, Towson's not a star rifler, but clearly they thought they had enough in Flamus. They're not wrong. Oh my god, is Flamus amazing? Ash done a great job, I think. Just when he brought him in, it looked like a role clash between him and Andu. Like, they both love to take openers, they love to challenge, they love to fight. And Andu ends up even leaving the team because he doesn't get to do it anymore. Because they were like, you know, Flamus is probably the better of the two. Just let him do it. Let him go crazy. And he has.
Sorry, we have a favorite son.
Yeah, basically. So now we have GamerLegion's roster who I don't think have shown their full potential, because Slend was, to me, a bit at the RMR. Towson and Volt just playing roles, and ZTR finding his moments, like these IGLs seem to. Like, these Swedish IGLs, like young guys who've come out, just seem to have a great mind for like when to go and frag and just the right places to find these kills. I mean, even Fear on PassionUA does it really well, like just understanding in the system where to go kill. And that's enough firepower with Flamus and the hodgepodge bunch the rest of them are. They've made it work. So I'm really impressed with the leadership behind the scenes and on the server. That one Russian nutcase with his hilarious quotes that I think will forever be repeated by the community. And yeah, GamerLegion to make it through. They've been underdogs before and they'll be underdogs again, but they keep on doing it, so why not?
I don't even know what
to not sound convinced.
I don't know how to approach this one, because it's good that they're here. I'm with you. I think Ash is probably the best coach in this stage of the tournament. Is Flamus enough to carry them through this?
Are you a Flamus believer? That's kind of the question. I am. I kind of believe.
The thing is, I can believe in one player, but I won't believe that they're enough to carry their team by them, like nearby themselves. Like, I need a little bit more out of other pieces on this roster for me to see the whole picture. Like, I need more from Slend, or I need more from Torsen or Volt. You know, I'm not fully convinced, and I think there was even an Ash interview where he wasn't sure that they would make it out of this stage because the team was so fresh and so new, which is why there was a lot of underrating of GamerLegion coming into the tournament, which I think is fair. It's warranted, and I just don't know that they've warranted enough to get through another part of the tournament. I think they've got stickers. That's already more than they should have accomplished with this roster, given the lifetime and, to be honest, maybe even some of the pieces. I'm not with you here.
I need to throw something in here. I'm sorry, but
sure.
So they made it out the challenger stage in Paris. Their highest rated player was rated 1.00. I'm not saying it's going to be pretty. This is just going to be an Ash masterclass. But this time they have a legit fragger in Flamus on top of it. Like, it doesn't matter how you win. Ugly, pretty, 16 zeros across the board or 13 11s here. You just got to make it out. And they have it. I think they just have it. Just this nous of doing it. So I just have to believe in it.
Yeah. I don't hate it. I think that the other thing that you have, by the way, okay, firstly, how the fuck have NIP just managed to let ZTR go to this team? What are NIP doing?
LNZ go as well.
They let Elias go, they let Nilo go, they let Adam B go. They let every talent in Sweden go, don't worry.
I don't get it. Because I think that's the one other thing that I would say is like above average on this team. Maybe not at this stage, but like ZTR I think is actually pretty good as a caller. And mainly just that he's like pretty good as a caller, but he's also a good fragger at the same time. So that helps this team, I think, quite a lot. And it's clear that, well, the question is how much of that is him and how much is Ash? Because like the other part is I'm so curious if G2 picked up Ash alongside Stacks. What would
that's
that
what I
look
was
like?
saying.
What does that world look like?
No, but that's what I was saying when they picked up Snacks. Well, when G2 picked up Snacks, I hated the fact that they didn't pick up, you know, Ash as like an analyst or like an assistant coach or something. Like, you could have still had Taz for the Polish VP interlink between Snacks and Taz, but I wanted Ash with Snacks to make that a proper like pairing in some capacity, and instead it didn't. And you know, G2 has still won stuff, I guess, but you know, I think Ash has even said himself that he's, you know, kind of appreciates the freedom that he has with GamerLegion, considering the amount of success he's had with the rosters.
Yeah, I think the other thing with GamerLegion is like, yeah, like you said, like some of the other players, I look at Volt and I'm like, in some maps he's even in good spots, and I'm like, he's just not playing that well. He really isn't. Like, it's kind of tough, and they are just a very inexperienced team, which doesn't help. But I don't hate the pick just because like they have a chance of grinding out results. And I think the big thing that I had always noticed with GamerLegion is I always felt like they were this team that got off to really good starts and then would start losing. And I used to think that they were just a team that just choked. But I actually just think maybe Ash just game plans really well for them, because you do always see them with the notes out and stuff. And I'm like, I think Ash is actually just, if he was calling the whole time, if there was a world where coaches got to call, maybe he would be able to be like very helpful. Or maybe he's just very good at prep and like anti-stratting and all this. I don't know. Whatever it is, even here, like some of the map starts they got off to were incredible. And then the one against Eklot, oh my God, what were they up? Like 11-4 up and they lost 13-11. Like, I don't know how that happens. They had that one against Bet Boom where they were massively up on Ancient and then they lost the map and they were able to win the series. But like, that's the only maybe slightly scary thing. I still feel like because of the lack of experience and because their best thing about this team is, well, Ash or Flamus, take your pick. But because those are the best parts about this team, like maybe they are going to struggle to adapt if it gets into a late game, and that's the only scary part, right? Like maybe Ash is really good at game planning, but maybe that's not enough to actually win. That's maybe the scary bit.
Look, they won, was it 4 back-to-back series 2-1? They're just grinders. Yeah. We got to respect it. And versus the Americas teams, versus the Asian teams, you know, there's always question marks. We don't know how that's going to end up working out. Can the prep just be far more impactful than the aim? Because let's be honest, we look MIBR like player to player against GamerLegion. There's no doubting who you think has got the more talented players, top to bottom. Who's going to outcall who, out-prep who, understand who better? So far, I've got a lot of evidence that says GamerLegion will have an edge. So that's essentially what I'm riding on there. That's enough about my picks. I know they sound terrible to everyone else, but that's okay. The scoreboard will tell the full story at the end of the day. So, Yuumi, we're back to you. You've got a pick. You can go favorite, you can go underdog. You've got it all open to you. So
yeah, you know what? I was kind of down on this team, and then they went and 3-0'd their RMR, and they beat Complexity along the way. I'm picking MIBR. Yeah, they might have a interesting opening game because, you know, game planning and all that. But if I have to worry about Flamus on the other team, they beat Complexity with a Liege in a best of 3. And to be honest, I wasn't sure this team would have it all together in time for the major and the RMR circuit. Sorry, I'm just making sure I have the opening.
They're playing Virtus Pro.
So they're playing Virtus Pro first. Sorry, my fault.
Your favorites are facing each other in match 1.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm hedging my bets. It's fine. I wasn't sure this team was going to have it all together in time with like the Lucalzi move and, you know, shifting of responsibilities to what I think it's drop calling on the team instead of exit, which was a whole, you know, got into a whole thing with Tony about it because it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Because you would think the Lucalzi move would allow exit more room to work off a system that works already. But to be honest, the calling in that Complexity series was actually pretty solid. Like a very, very, very closely wound game. That, and I think you got good star level performances out of players like Insani again, which is to be honest, there were moments where I thought Insani could just drop off the face of the earth. He sometimes did look like he was just like a shell of his former self, and maybe he didn't show like peak performance here. But exit also fragging like a monster. You have Safe as well, doing God's work on the AWP. I'm with this team. I think this team has a lot of firepower and a lot of raw talent on it. I think the biggest complaint has always been how they're using those pieces and the calling that surrounds it. And I think that's gradually rebuilt itself to where MIBR should have been come Copenhagen sort of last RMR cycle, they failed in a massive way, but I think they're back in a big way here now.
Yeah, I don't know about... Like, 'cause I was a believer, obviously, in the RMR. I picked them. Had to make some assumptions about who was calling at the time, and end up being I was wrong, then a comment came along and I was right, or the moves were in a different order. Something was going... I didn't really follow what ended up being the result of all that, like in terms of how the transfer saga played out. But it was a bit weird. But Hawka, we all know Insani has been, you know, a big name for a long time, and he was a bit up and down for me at this RMR. Do you think he can really bring it come the opening stage?
I don't know if he's just this streaky player. Maybe he is just really streaky in general, because he does have... The nice thing is he has maps where he just basically wins you the map, because he has these nuclear performances. But then, yeah, against Complexity, I think I was watching Vertigo, and I was like, he wasn't that great. He wasn't even actually...
Vertigo,
he wasn't even able to play like as aggressive, though, on that map, weirdly. Kind of felt like the other guys were taking more fights, so I don't know what that was all about. I would not have gone with this pick, so I'm kind of happy you've gone with them. Just because, for me, I get the feeling with MIBR that, like, so Safe, for example, like, good at this tournament, and maybe I'm just underrating Americas again, because I did this at the last major. I didn't pick, like, any of the Americas teams in my pick'em, and I got pretty screwed because of it. But, like, I do feel like Safe should drop off here if he's playing against EU teams. I kind of feel like with MIBR, they kind of look to me like a team who's trying to play like almost like European CS sometimes in a way. They have these aggressive players though, but like they feel like a more sort of standard team to me, and I just like I don't see them having the upside of some of the other teams here, you know? Like, I don't know what it is about them. It doesn't help that, but just before this, they were at that Challenger Katowice, and they just bombed out, and they lost against, like, Monty, and I was like, ugh. And then I watched that Complexity series, and I was like, this felt actually kind of scrappy to me as well, the Counter-Strike that was being played. Like, I haven't been that impressed by Complexity either. So I'm a bit like, I think there's a chance I'm just underrating Americas, sure, but yeah. Also, is Exit actually like this good, or like where's? I guess that's come from the fact that he's not calling, but
he was always kind of a fragging in-game leader, to be honest.
Maybe that continues, but yeah, him's their highest rated player. I feel like there's other teams I'd have slightly picked over them. Like they're definitely in the running to go through, but I don't know. They don't excite me. That's what it is. Except for Insani.
Yeah, Insani's awesome. And the case I kind of made for these guys was, you know, there's so many different players on here on this team who impress me in terms of just the fragging, the firepower, all that coming to the table. Obviously now you're no longer in Americas. And again, I'm also guilty of this all the time. Like just shitting on American Counter-Strike, be it North or South, talking about how I can't trust the domestic results, I can't trust this, I can't trust that. And it's not... I think it's hurt me a couple times, but
listen, there were some teams. There were some teams in that America's RMR that you could very easily warrant shitting on. Like Crew, we're just there to get beaten up.
We kind of did in the preview as well.
Yeah, exactly. We just refused to talk about them because we didn't want to, and they didn't do anything. So I'm glad we didn't. You know, there are some teams when it comes to the RMRs that are just deserved punching bags, and you know, the Americas RMR, the Asia RMR, they do frequent one or two of those teams.
I just think we give like we have a favorite son in terms of the two minor regions, like less not EU, as in we do very frequently, comfortably, happily talk shit about NA and sometimes Brazil. But when it comes to Asia, it's just like, oh, you can do nothing wrong.
They're trying. They're trying
so hard, and I'm really impressed. Oh, you're throwing flashbangs. Oh my god, it's amazing. All grown up, but yeah, we probably do rip on them a bit too hard. So I'm just gonna say, yeah, I actually kind of like the pick. I still think what I said before about them stands in terms of the firepower. And Insani, yeah, when he has his good games, he plays critical spots and he plays them in his good games really well and just dominates the area, which makes it impossible for the other team to really use that space, which is a great thing if you're that team. Suddenly you're not being pulled apart, you're just playing things straight up. When it comes to just winning aim duels, you can do it fairly comfortably as MIBR. So I like the pick. I I didn't pick them over Big, because I think Big do have an edge in terms of the calling. I still see them as a better called team. Despite some role irregularities for some, I still see them better.
The other interesting thing to me is like Pain have beaten MIBR like so much.
Yeah, we have kind of ignored
recently.
them.
they have kind of destroyed them. So I don't know if that's. I mean, you know, I know the Lukowski move was pretty recent, so maybe they just needed a bit more time to bed him in. But you know, Pain was still there. Pain was still there.
Yep.
Yeah, they were.
Well, that's speaking of still there. Like Hawka, we're back to you.
Yeah, I get 2 picks.
You have back-to-back picks again, so
exciting.
Show your allegiances.
You've got one favorite, one underdog, I think, left.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, I think in the favorites, like I probably it feels kind of crazy, but I think I probably do go Pain. I just like this is it's basically me just not believing in complexity. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that complexity MIBR series when I watched it, I was like, I don't believe in this at all. And what I like about Pain is I think they have like something a bit different about them with Big Uzera. And I kind of wonder, like, with Big Uzera just doing Big Uzera things and kind of doing this aggressive lurky stuff and this annoying, like, it can be off meta at times stuff. I just actually feel like that gives them a little something different that I don't know if all these teams, if they don't have time to properly prep, they can actually do pretty well with. And then I also like I like these players quite a lot. Like NQZ, just very good. Like, yeah, I think they've got the players for me. And like, to be honest, I don't, I just maybe I'm over like going against Furia, but I couldn't believe in them after that previous stage. And then yeah, I just also don't really like complexity, and I feel as though also Pain, they will beat Imperial in the opening matchup. I hope. I don't. I think they should. I think they should take that, and then from there, like in the brackets that I have them running in, I feel like they just get pretty good matches because their seed's pretty nice, which I think helps them a lot. So I see them as like a team that they make it through. Whereas like some of these other teams, like yeah, I'm basically literally picking them because I think they're pretty good, and like I'm so down on complexity and Furia. It's crazy. I'm so down on these guys, but hey. I like Pain. I like Pain too.
Yeah, we're kind of raging against the seeding today. Just like, nah, don't believe in your Furia 1 seed. Don't believe in your Complexity 5 seed. Give us any other favorite, please, and we'll take it to the bank. But no, after the way they lost to... It was Bait, right? They lost to at the Katowice. Yeah, it was. I remember watching that series and being like, still some things to work out here that... No, I didn't know how to exactly frame it, put a finger on it, explain it. I just think they're still a bit limited by something, and it's bothering me. I get the appeal of like the Big Uzera side of it. I mean, you have gone with 2 fragging IGLs who like to knock younger players into shape and use them really well as tools that everyone also gets kind of hyped about. But I don't feel it. I do pick a lot of these teams based on vibes, and it's worked. So, but it just gets hard to explain why I'm not digging the pick, because they are higher rated than Big. They probably have more like results against better teams, more play against better teams this year than Big have. I just don't get it. Yumi, can you explain it? Do you know what's been going wrong with them? I
personally think they're undergoing the same growing pains that the Mongolz had, where they make it to the major with an underpowered team. Everyone gets like the big confidence updraft of, hey guys, we've made it to a major now. We're, amongst a strict list of legends within our domestic scene. We are big shit. I think Kawes and Lux both had like mega upticks in their performance, and like just their independent playmaking actually went up quite dramatically, I think, just from watching. And I think they're undergoing the same issue that the Mongolz had, where it was very Big Uzera driven at the start, and I still think it is still very Big Uzera driven, and I think it almost has to at some point take a backseat. As much as you can be a high fragging in-game leader and everyone's going to be very impressed with you, I think there's a ceiling to how successful that iteration of a roster is going to look, unless you've got like 4 significant high IQ closers behind you, which are very hard to foster that kind of player, or even find those types of players. I don't think it's very sustainable. So for me, I think Pain have kind of plateaued in my eyes. I think they're just they've hit a ceiling where I don't think they're going to. Maybe they could make it through, but I think they'll make it through barely like a 3-2, and then they'll probably go 1-3 in the elimination stage. That's kind of where I place Pain at the moment, where I can't. I'm not as excited about this team because I think they've already hit a ceiling.
They do scream a 3-2 team. I will admit that. Maybe I could have gone Furia here, but like, maybe I'm hating on them too hard. I don't know, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
I mean, outside of that Rio group stage, has anyone watched Furia play this year and gone, I'm convinced, I believe?
I know.
Like,
Yeah.
It's been really tough.
But they are looking better and better.
For now.
Compared to where they were like 6 months ago.
Sure.
They're still crawling themselves like off the floor, just like they've made it maybe halfway up the skirting board, and we're
it's
trying
the
to
stairway to heaven. It's just they're on step 3 of 1 million.
Still somehow 8th ranked, so there's always that to contend with.
Indeed.
Hawka, you have an underdog to take. That'll close out your picks for the episode.
I do.
Yeah.
Still, yeah, I mean, I know the team that in theory, like, I should take, but they're not a team that I really believe in. So that's what's making this tough. That's what's making.
I could apply to
tough.
So many teams here. I feel like.
You think?
Heart.
Well, okay. I feel like most people would expect me to pick like Imperial here, but I don't really like Imperial much. So I don't think I'm going with them. And then it's just a question of like I'm kind of between FlyQuest and PassionUA probably. I can't do the
no love
card.
for Stanislaw?
No, I can't do it. Oh man. It's just two teams where I'm like, to me, they're like kind of similar. I don't really have massive amounts of faith in either of them making it through this stage, which isn't helpful. PassionUA are just like, they're just so like, they're not that interesting. But then I think I have to go PassionUA. I just like FlyQuest. I just don't believe in.
Why aren't PassionUA interesting?
Who cares about teenagers making the major? I mean,
no. Okay,
who cares?
I like the team. Like, I like Fear. I genuinely think they have some good pieces. It's more just that like compared to like pretty much all the other EU teams here, I'm like, I don't know. I don't care. Like they're not a team where I look at them and I'm like, yeah, they're just kind of there for me. I don't know if you feel differently, but I'm just like, yeah, all right, they're a pretty good team. Like at FlyQuest, meanwhile, I couldn't do because I've just watched them struggle too many times at this sort of stage. But yeah, PassionUA, like, the win against Astralis was nice. Still like Astralis was like a stand-in. I'm like, okay, close maps. But like, yeah, they Fear I actually think is like really good. I actually rate him very highly. It's just that like, I don't know why this team just they like when I watch them play, nothing like grabs me that much, if that makes sense.
So I'm the complete opposite. I don't think Fear is actually all he's chalked up to be. Might be a good leader.
Wow.
Might be a good leader, but to be honest, kind of trolls. Like individually, kind of trolls.
Yeah.
He makes a lot of really like questionable plays.
That doesn't help.
In like especially when they're building into games, I feel like Fear is trying. He's trying his hardest not to make a mistake, and then he makes a massive mistake because of that. And it's really the supportive cast that I think I've been the most impressed by. I mean, big Jambo supporter, really explosive player. Chilla, I think on some of his sight holds has looked really, really good. And then like I just feel like this team is very well rounded in terms of where impact comes from. Like you get good rounds out of Jacasmo, out of Zero Fix as well at this tournament. I think he's been very impactful for them. And to be honest, I think it's all in spite of a Fear that has been kind of underperforming individually. The rest of the team has been looking very good and very sharp mechanically, which I think is makes this team interesting to me, mainly because I don't know how much. I mean, I think they just re-signed with PassionUA before the major. I think that came out today, which is crazy because with how sharp they are individually, I could see some teams looking at this thinking, "Hey, that's a cool little passion project you got over there. How much for your players?" And Zinchenko or could just make a load of money off of this. So kind of shout outs to him, I guess. But this team's interesting. It was more the Spirit win that I think really helped legitimize them in my eyes, because the VP one, I don't think VP were really playing up to snuff, and I'm not saying that Spirit were either in that best of one, but I just liked that PassionUA were playing with balls. Like, they genuinely were taking risks and taking fights, believing that they could win clutches and pull off things that most tier 1 teams have too much respect for their opponent to think that they can do. And PassionUA didn't give that to them and got away with some murderous rounds. Like, they probably deserved to lose the best of one, but because they play with that confidence, they were able to win enough of those critical, 5%, 4% rounds that most teams wouldn't even attempt, and it won them the map. So I like that about this team.
I think maybe I think we probably have like somewhat similar views. It's just that I wasn't maybe as impressed as the individuals by you. Like I didn't think they were like crazy good. I was like, oh, they're all good. They're all good. Like, they're all pretty good. And then I did really enjoy, like, I think Fear has got this team, like, just team play wise, like, looking pretty solid. I still believe in Fear, even if individually, yes, he's not pretty to look at sometimes.
He had a horrendous RMR, like, to be clear. Yeah. And as someone who's watched, well, I watch a lot of what I call 9 AM Counter-Strike, tier 2 online cups, all that stuff. I've watched a lot of PassionUA this year because they've just been super active, and that's honestly a part of the reason why they've been able to win so much and get to this point. It's a trend we've noticed over the last couple of years. The teams who do play like 300, 400 maps a year, surprise, surprise, end up doing the best in like the CCT Cups. They end up winning more qualifiers. They're the ones who are able to, at the end of the year, sometimes even out-earn tier 1 sides we've seen historically. That's been some of the most hilarious stats to check. Fear in those games has been typically a fragger. Like, he's been a fragging IGL. I don't know what the hell happened at the major, RMR, but some of the games they did definitely deserve to lose. Like that Spirit game, how often are you going to win it with a 1v4 Ninja Diffuse? Like, in a 13-11 game, how often are you going to get that round?
I think they won like 3 1v2s.
Also.
And then they had a 1v3 Ninja Diffuse, which is mad.
Just what on earth are we talking about?
Against like a top 2 team.
It's awesome. It's hype. I love the story. I do think they are going to fall down here. This is a step too far. But I also think it's a bit weird. I don't really like the idea of them re-signing those contracts. Not necessarily 2-year, because I'm like, Jambo and Fear, given what they've managed to do, I mean, Jambo's just basically spent the year showcasing that he could be a tier 1 AWPer. Like, just give him a shot. And then Fear also, considering he's a young IGL who's, until this point, fragged really well, made a bunch of teenagers buy into a system. I mean, obviously the coach is obviously there as well, but he's the one on the server. I think there's a lot of value there. And I think they probably as a group didn't need to be here for another 2 years. I feel like it's going to be an awkward situation to try and get them into better projects. Maybe a Ukrainian super team, a dream team that could be made using a bunch of these kids. But instead, we're kind of in an odd sort of roster gulag potentially in the coming months. But on the Counter-Strike front, it is interesting seeing Zero Fix and S Chiller just randomly have pop-off rounds, because when I watch them play, like POV-wise, I'm never consistently getting impressive stuff, like in terms of watching their crosshair. But they do have their own moments, these moments where they will just flick to heads, make multi-kills happen, lock down an area, open up a site where they perhaps had no right to. They don't do it with the consistency of a Mazinho, of a Techno, like, to go back to like a Mongolz comparison. But they do it frequently enough for it to be clearly noticeable. So I think there is a future here. I mean, Ukraine has a crazy set of talented players coming through. But I don't think this event is the way. Like, especially now that we're going in front of 5,000 people. All right. Hey, teenagers, you want a wake-up call? This is it.
I'd also like to say, in that Astralis game, they also probably deserve to lose that Ancient, but Astralis were doing their very best to troll every major advantage that they had. It was actually astounding, the rounds that they were losing, and they looked gobsmacked every time, like, wait, they're still going for this round? Or, oh, I didn't realize that was open. Bro, you're Astralis, please.
Yeah.
How is this happening to you so regularly as well? It was like 2 versus 4s,
This is
4 versus 5s, 3 versus 5s. They were just losing all of them, and I just couldn't believe my eyes.
I think that's kind of like why, even though I've picked them, I'm like mainly because I didn't really believe in the other teams. But yeah, I'm like, yeah, like the way it didn't seem that repeatable, right? The way they were winning, and maybe it is, I don't know. But like, yeah, they were just winning like these weird games, and like, I think it probably doesn't help other than Jambo, who's good. Like the rest of the fraggers, they're all just like kind of at a similar level from what I saw. They're all just like, yeah, they're there. So that's maybe why they don't seem as exciting. I think it's always more exciting when you have one rifler who you're just like, yeah, that the shit.
It's
you know,
meant to be
everyone's on
Jacasmo, which doesn't quite feel like it, right?
I think statistically it might, the stats might lie a bit in the sense that like the maps that they did lose, they looked like they were just completely shut down, and so everyone's statistics get tanked mega. Which of course you can't only take stats from the maps they win and think, oh, these guys are the greatest, but you know, they did have moments in series where they were just getting completely like shut down, and I think their Mirage, to be honest, I think I maybe would worry about them in best of threes, because I think the Mirage is actually kind of a weakness of this team. In both series that they lost in the RMR, that it was Decider Mirage, and it was always just losing rounds and losing advantages in the opening 30 seconds while taking map control, and there, like, it didn't seem like there were many good backup plans in store, which I think was really concerning, because it just didn't, for a team that looks like they're so chock full of ideas when you see them on Ancient, when you see them well, I want to say Anubis as well, or am I being stupid?
No, Anubis, they play fairly well.
Yeah, it's just you see them go for so many ideas, and then for them to go into a Mirage where it just looks so cookie cutter and basic, it seemed very night and day to me. But I don't know if that's just the major nerves getting to them or what.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. I don't know. I think it's the fact that they were going through all those situations. It's like kudos for having this belief. It's again credit Coach IGL getting all that buy-in. You shouldn't win those. You shouldn't, and you probably won't come the bigger games against the better opponents. Your hand gets a little shakier in front of 5,000 people. If it's your first time, especially. So.
Also, they've already made their money.
True. Very true.
8 months of build-up of living together or whatever, grinding online tournaments. They get their major stickers, and they have re-signed contracts that I guarantee are better than the contracts they had signed before if they're getting extensions. So
can get all the anime mouse mats they want.
Yeah.
Live in the CIS Counter-Strike dream. Right, Yumi, you also have an underdog left to pick. I think Hawka's done you a favor there. I'm going to be honest.
Really?
I think he's left some better options on the board.
I'm so curious.
I think there's only one team worse, like as in terms of how strongly I feel about them making it through. There's only one team worse than PassionUA that was left. So
you're insane.
Well, I'm going with the Asia RMR because I'm a delusional maniac, and I think FlyQuest will do well at this particular tournament.
Oh, you disappoint me. I was really hoping for a rare atom pick there.
No,
just
of course not.
Because
that is the team that you were alluding to Hawka just now, probably.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not picking them. I ain't doing it. Even though it's cool, you know, Summer, Kaze, whatever, somebody, they're all back, and then you've got like new blood, whatever. I'm not talking about Rare Atom. I think they kind of suck. Yeah, I'm picking FlyQuest because as much as, you know, Alistair is maybe up and down, and, you know, I think there's a lot of very warranted critique of his play. You know, even for the Asia RMR, he didn't have a very good bounce off of the Atlanta win that you know, I wasn't sure FlyQuest were going to be able to do. This team actually, I think, is just got a really well-rounded set of riflers behind it. You know, you have Inns, which weirdly was kind of absent in Atlanta, coupled with Vexite. You know, Dexter has moments where he can actually take over a series as well, which is strange to say because I know we always think about Dexter as fragging in-game leader, but all those years in Europe, he didn't really express that in a very wholehearted way. But Atlanta was a good demonstration of him being able to get that ability to him. He's he's kind of a space taking in game leader, which is a great way of enabling Vexite and Liaz that are often behind him. Like Ins you don't need as much forward. You don't need a first wave of attack to enable Ins. You can kind of leave him in spots and he can find impact for himself very frequently. And the big X factor is Alistair, that honestly can sometimes look like he has the fastest reaction time of any AWPer in the world, actually. And then other times he will still react fast, he'll just miss everything.
Yeah.
So I don't think genetically he's at a disadvantage. I think he's actually a very fast-witted player. He puts himself in bad positions because he thinks he can get away with fast shots, and then he misses those shots and he loses. But this team actually has like good team chemistry between them. Like when you see them on CT sides, they flash for each other. When teammates need support, they're playing hinged setups where if there is going to be a site hit and the anchor needs support, it'll be there in 1 or 2 seconds because they're not playing so far away from each other. I think they like coupling up and creating these little triangle defenses, which to me is actually I don't know, it just looks clean. I think when I see FlyQuest doing well, their Counter-Strike looks clean. The Drillers game in the Asia RMR was anything but clean, but
Yeah.
that was for both teams. I think everyone was just wrapped up in the chaos. So I'm willing to brush that one aside. Everything else I've seen from FlyQuest has indicated to me that they've taken the steps necessary to build themselves into, honestly, quite, in my opinion, quite a threatening team.
Yeah, that's all fair. Honestly, I can't say much against it. The FlyQuest for me were a team I thought would make it through the Asia RMR, but I always thought they'd have scary games. And I think the Drillers Chaos is that's what happens when you play against Drillers. Like, it's going to look a lot uglier than it has to, rather than anything else. It's just
Mongolz even lost map against them,
Exactly. Like, they're going to fight scrappy, they're going to have nice skins. Like, it's just a weird game to play out. So, no, I don't read too much into that. I do think they still have... Yeah, the way you talk about we're still talking about the same things I feel like we've always talked about with this group of players, Dexter there or not, like it's the same old mess. But I do have a question for Hawka. You picked PassionUA over them.
Mm-hmm.
You acted baffled, appalled by me suggesting that PassionUA might not have been the best of the underdog picks left. What is it you don't like about FlyQuest that puts them below this PassionUA team in your esteem?
I mean, it doesn't help that Challenger Atlanta win. I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, Dexter's your best player, is he? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's sick. That's great. He's
play
your
every round
highest
with a
rated
deagle,
player.
then yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, this is a great start. Then Alistair, this motherfucker's the most inconsistent AWPer I've ever seen in my life. This guy needed to go like a year ago from this team. I'm sorry. I just see this guy like so often. Like occasionally he'll come to a tournament and he'll be really good. And I'll be like, oh yeah, that's oh my God, he's landing these crazy flicks and stuff, man. This guy's great. And then he'll do nothing for 6 months. And I'm like, oh, okay, brilliant. I think the other players like all right, but like Dexter, at least for me, like as an in-game leader, he doesn't like, it doesn't look like this team has crazy good chemistry to me ever. I don't think it ever has for me with Dexter teams. And like just this team screams to me of a team where like just skill wise and talent wise, they don't have the ability to like beat a lot of the better teams for me. They just don't, unless they have like some random pop off from like an Alistair. Like the other players are good, but I don't see them as like better than a lot of the teams here. And maybe that's partly just Dexter as well. But like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like this team, like they just should have, for me, just picked up 1 or 2 EU players. Like they just needed to get like an EU AWPer, and they just needed to get like either an EU in-game leader or rifler. Because like this team just feels hard capped to me. Like not really being able to go much further than this. Like I just don't see it. I maybe it was just the fact seeing Dexter top rank to win you a tournament. I'm like, that's not real life, guys. That's not going to happen at this stage. Come on now, let's be serious.
Quickly, if you're bringing in a European IGL, do you keep Dexter as a fragger?
Honestly, you could consider it.
I think
I
you
probably
probably just keep him as an in-game leader, and then you get
You also
like-
could do that, yeah. Just get a sick like entry rifler.
and just get an AWPer. You know, I think if
Yeah.
FlyQuest fail, they will probably think about doing the. I
Yeah,
mean,
that
they'll
has
probably
to
do that.
happen.
They will probably get an EU AWPer and an EU rifler and just move along with life. I still maintain Inns is the best mechanical Australian we have in the circuit right now.
Inns is good. Inns is good.
He is better than JKS, yeah, and I think
Ooh.
he is leagues better than JKS. Just like in terms of raw impact and actual individual individual mechanics, like just from the way that they play. I know that they're different types of players, but Inns has been consistent for long enough and has always, from eye test, just looked good while putting up those types of numbers. That I think it's hard to refute that. You know, to be honest, he might even be wasting his time with FlyQuest if they don't make significant changes and try and angle for, I guess, championship aspirations.
Yeah.
The way I describe this team is I'm like, they're good, but are they like good? Like, no, they're not that good. They're like good enough, but they're not.
He's like good
they're not
4
really
times.
They're good, but are they good? I mean, you know
Yeah,
they're
are they
good,
good though?
but are they good? Like,
Exactly.
it's all about the intonation. We're speaking Mandarin,
Exactly.
boys. There's 5 accents. Like, learn them all. No,
Welcome to Shanghai.
exactly. Yeah, I don't know how many accents there are in Cantonese. I've never learned that, but that's the conversation we're having. I think Inns is, a legit fragger who could hang if he went and played on like a North American team. Like if he'd 2 years ago been signed by, just say Complexity, whatever. Like they finally got tired of Grim and just like, oh, let's try this chap. He's got a cool accent. I think he would have probably thrived. But it does feel like he is sort of self-limited. Or maybe no one else believes in him. And he's just stuck here. So, FlyQuest I think are a decent pick to make an underdog run. Because they do have the ceiling to do it. They already won Atlanta. I think they're done for the year. This is the end of it for me. Like
They peaked too early.
they peaked in Atlanta, man.
They either win the major or they win Atlanta, and they chose Atlanta.
To be honest, Atlanta, Shanghai, where would you rather peak? Those who know the nightlife know what I mean. But no, let's wrap this up with my very unfortunate situation of having to pick the final underdog of the show. It rarely goes well. It's rarely pretty. Usually ends with some laughing and a very sad.
It's not that
person who
bad
made a
this
pick.
time. It's not that bad.
It's actually not that bad this time because usually it ends up being something that no one wanted to do. But I was always okay with this result. I'm going to be honest. I picked them before. And I'm okay with picking them again. I believe in WildCard.
Wait, oh, yeah.
Shocker,
I expected Imperial.
The
Okay,
one
wow,
streamer-owned team that made it.
Exactly. You know, streamer-owned teams clearly get a buff. Like, Gorillas had no right even winning a single BO1.
They chanted the streamer's name after they won.
They really?
Yeah.
God.
After they qualified, they go in a
Can I take that
circle.
back? That's
Love that.
They go in a circle, started jumping and chanting her name.
Lads, you're not her tier 3 subs. Please. God. But okay, the reasons why I was going to pick this team, and I was happy to pick them last time, and I'm happy to pick them again, is basically threefold. I believe in Stanislaw as a caller. I still think he's kind of just fighting his way back up to like being just respected by people as a legit caller. Like he took a break. He also had his fair share of downfalls. I think it was deserved that he kind of fell down in everyone's esteem. But the fact that he has taken this roster and polished, it's not polishing a turd, but it's just making the best of a difficult project in this sense. I think it's been admirable. He's got himself in Jaber one of the few North American gems we can genuinely be happy about. I think it was actually an outstanding RMR for him. Like, sure, they only played 4 maps in the end. Just suffering from success in that sense by going straight through 3-0. But in those maps, we saw a Jaber that actually could be the best player on the server. Like, he could play his role outstandingly. He could win games. He could win rounds just single-handedly. So that was awesome because I was worried about that. Last times we'd seen him on LAN, he was very iffy. Like, you know, he looked like he was maybe too young for it. It was
Kind
too
of bad,
much.
to be honest.
Yeah, he was just bad.
Yeah.
It just didn't look good. So I was worried about that. But at that point I was happy with, like, you know, I've got Susp. I always think of him as a solid player. He was solid. I've got Sonic, who has been an amazing fragger under this leader and showed it again at the RMR. Like, he topped the ratings charts for them. I'm always baffled by how Sonic keeps reinventing himself, like from pack rifler to, or AWPer to pack rifler to now just like openings he's taking, like the vast majority for this roster. It's cool that it keeps working, but it's a bit wild. And sure, this wasn't like a bombastic event for Fuzi. Like, it wasn't crazy impactful, but he played well enough and they make it through to here. And so all these things, you know, the rifle core, the calling, the imported AWPer, of course, and of course the fact that they played so well at the RMR just makes me very happy to take a risk on them. It was a risk last time, it's a risk this time as well. 3-0 would be ridiculous. I don't think anyone could even wish that for most of their favorites, like as a realistic aspiration. But yeah, I could see them making a run here again, just based on those foundational principles. It's not a Cloud9, it's not Fnatic. I was bummed to miss those, but I still think WildCard have a good thing going, and they're still making, like, trying to make that claim that they are the third best in North America. And if they make it through here, pretty much undeniable.
Yeah, to be honest, I just back the whole Sonic kind of carrying on this team. I kind of just love that.
We're talking about Sonic, right? Just so I'm aware. Sonic.
Yeah, South African
Sonic.
The guy that wasn't good enough for extra salt. Sonic.
Yeah, the black sheep of extra salt who, yeah, he wasn't good enough to be their AWPer because they had OC, and then on the rifle front they had Fang and they preferred him at the time. And yeah, that guy. He's legit just banging heads for this team.
Yeah, I just maybe again this is why I don't believe it, but no, go on, Yumi, go on.
No, it's just mad because Sonic is legitimately the best player on this team.
Yeah,
which is strange because, you know, you have Fuzi, Jaba, both supposed to be like prospects in a way. Fuzi, I think, has developed his game quite significantly. Jaba, I think my concern with him is that when he gets in front of a crowd, I think he will revert back to that level again. So, as soon as I found out that there is going to be a crowd for the opening stage, Jaba, sorry, you did not make the cut. You are the weakest link. Goodbye. Everything else, I like Stanislaus calling. I think it was just it wasn't anything too elaborate. It was good macro decision making. Like, everything he did made sense. From a very, I don't know. It felt very logical, everything that was happening on the map, even if the players were losing gunfights, so they'd still get flanked out by unexpected pushes. Everything from their point of view, I think, was logical. And yeah, I mean, this team has talent. I think it has some promise. I think I've not really been that impressed with Susp actually on this roster. I think, you know, Fozy has had impact. I think Susp has maps, but I think, to be honest, he's kind of underperforming for what I would expect a sort of an import player to do on a North American team. You know, even against North Americans, I think Susp is kind of struggling to find a level, and maybe it's because it's more chaotic than what he's used to, like, given the background.
I think it's a part he's not, like, when you see European come in, you expect kind of he's going to be pub stomping because he's playing the pub stomp role, and you know, and he's not really playing those roles like outright. He's got a couple maps where he's favored, but generally it is the Sonic and Jaba show. He kind of fills in the gap, the space in between, and takes some of the opening volume. So it's a bit, yeah, I see what you mean, but I believe it is more of a decision from the team on how they're structuring themselves rather than him just not being good enough. Because I've seen him play in EU. I know he's good enough.
Yeah, but I think the problem is, like, when you have a skill gap, your role actually shouldn't matter that much, in my opinion. Especially on CT sides, I think you should be able to pull off your multi kills, you know, out duel your opponents in quite a significant way. That's what I expect to see from Susp, and I think I'm frequently let down by his numbers when I expect him to skill gap some of the opponents they play in North America, especially. So
Yeah.
I don't disagree. I think he does have. I know I've seen the potential, but I just haven't seen it with this wildcard roster, which makes me a little, wishy-washy. Sonic Fozy, I'm big up on. Jaba, so
Yeah. Given that he's playing like 6 anchor spots out of 7, maybe you wanted more of a Yimp fat.
yeah,
You wanted
yeah.
more of that.
When you're fighting North Americans,
Yeah,
that's what I want to
exactly.
see out of you.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is my big problem. Like Fozy, like I thought was like he was like a decent, pretty good like player when he was in Europe. He went to Rare Atom for a bit, by the way.
Yep.
I don't know what that was
And
all
he was
about.
farming.
Oh yeah, he
was
farmed the
farming.
hell out
Yeah.
of China. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, which is fair enough. But then I'm like, yeah, obviously he's doing very well in NA, but this is just like I feel like I've just seen these players just be like, not like that standout at other teams. So I'm like, yeah, Stanislaus calling I do believe in, but I just player wise, I'm just like, I don't believe in it. I don't believe that Sonic will come to this stage and be like really good. I don't believe that Fozy will come to this stage and be like good. Even their better players, I don't believe in that much. I actually, you know what? I went to check the odds. Okay, there are odds. And the odds makers have them like second worst team here. They have Rare Atom 12-1 to qualify, and then Wildcard 7-1, which is that's maybe
Quite
a bit
gap,
harsh.
but yeah.
Yeah, that's maybe a bit harsh, but like, yeah, just the players like.
Which odd makers? Hang on, I've got money to bet.
You gotta get a betting
give
sponsor,
me those
dude.
odds. I do, and that's why I never mention them. But I'm like, my betting preference. Wink, wink. Like, check your
go.
emails, company I'm referring to.
But yeah, I'm sorry, I just can't believe in the players on this team, and I love that you guys can, but I can't. do
Yeah,
it.
well, remember the numbers you see for Fozy dominating NA online. He was literally like stomping.
Yeah.
He was doing that on 100 ping from EU because he couldn't get the visa right.
I did it. That's
He's
crazy.
warping on 100 ping and
Yeah,
stomping.
when they played it in Atlanta, they had to use friend or whatever.
Yeah, it was friend.
Yeah.
So yeah, he is. I think he deserves a little bit more credit for that.
I'm a bit surprised. Did you consider Imperial or? I guess
did,
maybe.
but most
maybe
of my
Wildcard have more unknownness. Like they have a higher ceiling, I guess.
For me, I know more about Wildcard. Because I've watched a lot of their games, having profiled Jaber, having spent a lot of time discussing and watching Fuzi and Susp. For me, it was more about, I know what I like about this team, I know why I like it. Imperial, I know I like Try. I don't really know if I like much else about the team overall, like structurally, like what's going on the server. Like I'm not too sold, but I think there's one big name we have overtly omitted and constantly referred to them as we've admitted them. And I think in this sort of extras segment that we do at the end of the show, we have to talk about them. Hawka, you didn't pick Furia. You picked Pain.
Someone should
You picked Mongolz. You picked anyone but. So did we all. What is your justification for skipping over the greatest team ever to play Counter-Strike?
I don't know, man. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, it's the crazy thing was like, it wasn't even K Serato like playing out of his mind anymore. That was maybe one of the things that was scary. Like, K Serato was still like very good, but he wasn't like hard having to carry. I don't know. I think just a lot of the other teams are actually like pretty solid at this stage out of those favorites that we had. And like, I think if it was between like Furia and maybe I don't even know who else. I don't know. Like they maybe could step up to this stage. And like Skulls has been okay, I guess. But like, I guess the question is, does Fallen just step up again at this stage randomly? Does that happen? But like, I don't know, man. Watching this team is so frustrating. Just watching like K Serato and Yuri was even good at this RMR. That's the crazy thing. Yuri was good as well, and we're still not picking them because like they just look so dysfunctional in so many other areas. I just couldn't do it.
Well, it's because they have an AWPer that is shit. like unfortunately, Fallen ain't who he used to be. He's not that guy anymore. He is not the librarian.
But every now and then, Yumi, he has that one map where you're like, whoa.
Yeah,
back, boys.
Great. I just the thing is, I don't hate the way that this team plays at times. You know, I think they look a lot better. They're definitely trending up right now. I wish I had an AWPer on this team that I could be excited about. That could be another like dominant figure alongside Quesarado and Yuri. That's all you
To be
need.
fair, genuinely at Copenhagen, I remember Fallen just randomly like playing actually all right.
Yeah,
And that's why they actually did like better than a lot of people
and that's
thought. So
that's
maybe that
all
does
they
happen.
need. That's all they need is an AWPer that actually puts up some numbers. And this team, it actually I think fucks, but instead Fallen just sucks, and it sucks because this team could be so much better. Like if they if they picked up, and I know they can't do this because buyouts suck, but if they had like I don't know, fucking Big Uzera and you get Henny back, oh, this team would be so lethal.
It can't just be Fallen though, because like with some of the other teams we picked over them, you know, like
Yeah, but
when I watch this team
it's
play,
a
I'm
key
still
thing, isn't it? Like it's
just Fallen.
VIGL and the Star AWPer technically.
yeah, that's what I mean more. Like I think the calling is also not. I don't think it's that good.
It's getting better. It's still not grand. I agree.
Yeah, sorry, I just separately just got 8-1 on a wildcard to go through. I'm sticking a 1-unit bet on that every day of the week. Just a side note. Considering 2.3 to 1 of PassionUA's odds, fuck off. Give me that.
Mate, I'm telling you, PassionUA better. See, this is it's a great pick.
Absurd. This is why the only way you can make money right now in betting isn't sports betting, esports betting. The bookies have a fucking clue. What is that?
It's that they have so much data on PassionUA because they've played like 300 fucking maps or whatever.
Obviously, probably.
All those online maps, against technically
you still
higher
can't make
teams.
me believe in wildcard though. I mean, at those odds, maybe you do just.
You have to take that bet. It's just mathematically, there's no way they're that much worse. But all right, is there anyone else that we need to touch on? Really, like Furia, we kind of we just don't believe in Fall and the way.
I mean, we didn't pick complexity either.
We didn't play Cole. That's true. I think we do. They deserve a mention just because they are American and everyone yaps about them. Why didn't we pick them?
I think I mainly didn't pick Furia, sorry, just to stay on that for 1 second, is because they just don't excite me. Like, other teams are more exciting, and I think deserve to do better, just based on the talent or the way that these teams have played, or, I think we've seen enough of Furia. And to be honest, that's maybe even how I'm feeling about Complexity a little bit, too. I wanted this team to make a roster move before we got to this point, and they just never did. And now we're still here with, kind of a rifling pairing outside of Elige. It's Floppy and Grim that I want them to do better. And, usually it's, at the moment, I think it's kind of Grim that's suffering a bit.
Yeah. Floppy was bad for a long time, and he actually did all right at the RMR. And then, like, Hulzerk is still just not very good as an AWPer. Like, I'm sorry, he's not very good. Yeah. And this team, for the longest time, was saved by JT randomly deciding to be the best fragger as an in-game leader ever, apparently. And that suddenly stopped. And now you realize, it is just like the depressing Elige has to do everything show, which, I like Elige, but you can't put all your eggs in one basket. That's why.
But when Hulzerk's rifling, he's helping Elige pretty hard. Actually, he's
the second best rifler on the team.
Yeah, no, it genuinely might be.
It's got that Nikados type energy, just like give me a rifle. Like, this is why you signed me, right? It's for my rifle play. No,
maybe we are falling into the trap of just being disappointed by what these teams could be, and that's why we're not choosing them.
Yeah, because we watch them so much at big events, and we think about big names like Quesarado. Could have been like one of the best riflers in the world for 5 years. Should have been competing for majors and all this other stuff. Never really got to. Elige, he's still in his prime. His prime is never ending, it seems. Like, we want... it came back, because it did leave him for a while.
Either way, I think they do deserve to be punished for being so annoying. And their punishment is this. It's the pettiest punishment of all time.
We're not picking you on our show because you didn't cut Floppy and Grim when we asked you to. God.
That'll show them.
Or just one of them. No, I didn't even need both of them to be gone.
True.
Just one of them.
One. Take a risk on someone else in an A, or finally stop being American. Get rid of the star. Go back to the old logo.
Because I think Grim's been the more consistent one, but then just like from event to event, it'll be like Floppy's doing slightly better, and Grim is doing worse, and now Grim is doing better, and now Floppy's doing worse. Like what are we doing here? Why are we playing like musical chairs about who gets kills? Why don't we just all get kills, please?
But also, like, Grim probably has the better roles, right? Like Floppy, the thing is, Floppy would sometimes be very bad, but he's also in bad positions. So I'm like, well, okay. When Grim's bad, I'm like, we need you, mate. We need you.
The problem I've often had with that comparison is that, unfortunately, much to my chagrin, because it's become a crutch, I think, for a lot of people, myself included. I've looked up their target ratings, and despite everything, it's bad spots are bad spots, but you're still bad. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like,
it is true.
That's been the frustration for me with Floppy, is that he gets the credit of being the bad spots, but it still feels like he should be slightly better.
Yeah, but then like when Grim's bad, it's like he might have a 1.00 rating, and you're like, well, that's still, you need to do better than that type. Beat.
And I'm always disappointed. But it's like, when one has a good event, the other one has a bad event, that's the player we cope about for a second. Like, oh, look, he could be good. Forget all about it. Next event, when the other player's playing kind of okay, you're like, oh no, he could be good. Can't cut him now. It feels like it ping pongs between the two of them. Just cut both. I don't care. I'm not happy with either one.
We're so grumpy.
Yeah. I mean, we have no teams of our own, really, so we have to berate someone.
Get Swisher!
Yeah, get Swisher. But they never will. And on that glorious note, we shall wrap up the show. Oh, we kept it sub 2 hours. Look at us. So restrained. So on topic. But all right. Thank you, Hawka, for joining us. It's been a pleasure again. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a like. Leave a comment telling us your thoughts on these teams, why PassionUA are going to make it through, why you believe that WildCard are actually 8-1 underdogs to make it out, like the bookies for some reason do. Subs, you want to see more content. And remember, members get more content and rights. So become a member. It's cheap. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.